Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon. It is 3 o'clock. We are going to start the budget work session, May 4th. Madam Clerk, would you call the meeting to order and do roll call? Thank you.
Brenham, Pugh, McBride, Livingston, Teratio, Weaver,
Here.
Barron,
Here.
Walker, Mackey,
Here,
English,
I noticed Ms.
Newton.
McBride is online. Ms. McBride is here. And then give 1 minute and we'll get Mr. Livingston for the roll as well. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Administrator Brown, do you have any changes to the agenda today?
No, Madam Chair, no changes.
All right. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Should call for the vote, Madam Clerk.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right. First up is the general fund. Administrator Brown.
Thank you. Appreciate you all taking the opportunity to come out on this afternoon for this work session. As you know, we've kicked into full swing at our budget season, and this is the next step from our other work sessions. The voice that you're going to hear to walk us through this is going to be our budget director, Mr. Abi Deshpande. And so I'm going to turn it over to him, but we are really excited about the opportunity to continue to make positive steps towards our strategic plan. And hopefully this information will give you a good opportunity to understand how we continue to move forward and do that. Mr. Deshpande?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and the members of the council. Abi Deshpande, Director of Budget. I have to say, like, today is the May 4th, so May the 4th be with Richland County and this resident here.
Did you work all day on that one?
I like it.
Thank you.
So in terms of the agenda, we'll go through the strategic budget initiatives. Then we'll talk about the general fund overview. We'll talk about the general fund details, new positions, recommendations. Then we have like 2 departmental presentations from the business license regarding business license rates and the building permit rates. Then after we'll talk about the debt service recommendations and millage agency. So regarding strategic budget initiatives, so there are 5 different strategic budget initiatives that those are recommended in FY24 budget. The first one is cost of living adjustment. Administration is recommending 4% cost of living increase for Richland County employees, for the full-time employees. FY24 general fund expenditure impact is projected at $4.4 million and some change. That was only for the general fund. Other funds, including which is the special revenue and the enterprise fund, that impact is around $1.1 million. This COLA will be implemented from the August 1st, 2023. The next table, the table shows basically the 10 highest fiscal impact departments for the COLA. And this is just for the 4% COLA. So these are the 10 highest fiscal impact departments. Moving forward, the second budget initiative is compensation study. As you know, administration took a comprehensive compensation study studied like this year for the fiscal year 23, and the fiscal year 24 budget is going to use the recommendation to structure the program and propose that program to the council at later stage. But what this does is basically that the cost of that program will account for a budget for this particular year, FY24. This is not about the structure of the program, but just the cost of that program for fiscal year 24. The general fund expenditure impact is 5.5 million and some change there. The overall recommendations or this compensation study will bring the minimum wage increase from $16.51 per hour to $17.17 per hour for our minimum salary for a full-time employee for 1,950 hours working for the county. This program will be implemented after the structure of the program is approved by the council from January 1st, 2024. The table below shows basically combine the 4% COLA plus the impact of the comp study, which is basically altogether is $10 million total investment. And the table shows basically the public safety department and the other general fund department. Basically just breaks down the impact of that, the $10 million between public safety and the rest of the general fund departments. So you can see the total, again, for the public safety, the total investment will be $5.699 million. And the general fund departments, it will be $4.3 million. And that again for the COLA plus the comp study. So as the total impact is 10%, 10 million on the expenditure side. So out of that $10 million, the $3 million will be funded from the ARPA funds, which were committed or approved by the council for the public safety personnel in in this current fiscal year, which is FY 2023. So the budget assumes that we'll be using that $3 million for this initiative. And the remaining $7 million will be used from the general fund revenue. Moving forward. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
And give me just 1 minute, Ms. Barry. And I want to say for Councilmember McBride that is online, we cannot see you. Raise your hand. So if you do have any comments, please speak up so you can be recognized. Councilwoman Barron.
Thank you. And this question may be kind of, it may answer itself, but so when I look at the Sheriff's Department, their number is quite larger than the rest. Is that because they have more staff than all the rest, or is it based upon what the staff are presently being paid?
It's a combination of both, but definitely if you look at the FTE count wise, that's one of the biggest, the biggest county department in terms of the FTE count, and again the combination also the amount of salaries as well for FTEs. Yeah, so it's about.
I'm sorry. Can we just try to be mindful of the acronyms just to make sure
Yeah, sure,
everybody is on the same page when
Sure.
we answer questions?
So the FTE is basically the full-time equivalent. So basically, it counts the number of personnel working for as a full-time employees.
Yes, ma'am.
So these FTEs or these full-time employees that you're speaking of, we're talking about positions, or are we talking about actual people that are working in these positions?
So both positions. However, for the sheriff's department, this is basically using the positions, and some of positions are frozen, but the non-frozen positions are counted in that estimates. Yeah,
Is the term frozen?
frozen basically they are off payroll right now. So
Why is that?
Maybe may I ask Mr.
Sure,
Brown to
And
chime
I'm
in?
asking these questions specifically because we're using terminology that I want everyone to be very clear about.
Sure.
And so that's why I'm asking. Thank you.
Sure, and some of this terminology really is, county internal terminology, but I can certainly discuss it. So what the budget director is saying is, from time to time, you may have an agency who wants to use the value associated with the position, so that while they may not have a body filling the position, they're utilizing that funding for another purpose. That other purpose could be to provide additional salary dollars to other employees within the agency, or other related budget purposes. So the term frozen is a term that simply says once you have accounted for those funds, you can't account for them twice, so that we put a word on an Excel sheet that basically communicates to you that you cannot fill this position because you're currently using the funding associated with this position for other purposes.
Thank you, and I thank you for clearing that up. So with that, and this is not specific to the sheriff's department, but it could, apply for any of these positions that we're speaking of. We are, with this, what we're doing is we're putting the COLA in place for all positions that are allotted for. And so essentially what we're saying is that even though this position is frozen, there are funds that are going in that position that will allow for this increase should they be filled.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilman Weaver, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Desponte, I have another question. I understand the COLA, the 1.4 for the Sheriff's Department, but on the additional 2.1 million, do we know what that will raise a minimum deputy pay to, or is that a figure we get from the Sheriff's Department?
So that will be proposed as a plan when county administration will propose the overall plan of the structure of that program. So it's not finalized yet. So that's why this is just what this is doing is basically reserving a fund of
Just kind of a blueprint.
overall part
Okay.
for that fund.
So assuming this is passed, we would get that figure from the Sheriff's Department?
I think it will be presented from as an administrator will present
Okay.
that at some point. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess I want to clarify because I hear a lot of different comments being made, and so I want to really make sure that we're clear about a compensation study that we as a body agreed upon that was done and completed, and a compensation study to make sure that all of our employees across Richland County are getting paid what we believe they should be getting paid based on a study that looked at similar positions. And so this proposal that they're giving to us, it does show a cost of living increase, which is what we as a body agreed upon last year and want to continue to commit to all county employees this year. But then it also looks at how to implement the compensation study, the results of that study that the staff will present at a later date based off of research that they found for all county employees. And so even looking at it, and I don't know if this was clear, but even it's a breakdown of cost of living and then the implementation of when it starts in January 1st of 2024. So there's time for us to evaluate and look at that and how we are moving forward. And so I don't mean to take
No,
over
I
your
think
presentation, but I just wanted to really make sure we were all clear that these are things that we've been working on and planning as a body to help all employees get where we need to be at compensation, going back to our strategic plan as a body that we all agreed on. So
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
you're welcome.
And
And I
just-
want to, sorry, one more thing, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Want to recognize my chair, he's here now, so take over at any moment, sir.
Vice Chair. Doing a wonderful job, so I'm proud to call you my chair.
And just one addition to that, this is the multi-year implementation. So what the number that you're seeing for the COM study just for FY24, there would be another number for next fiscal year. So this is a two-stage study implementation. Yeah. If not, I will move forward. So the third strategic budget initiative is this is regarding refining and redesign the business license fee schedule, and that's where we have a department presentation also after just like few minutes regarding talking about this initiative in detail. But what it does is basically refine the current business license fee schedule. Also, it does identify some non-compliant businesses where we can collect some business license revenue from these non-compliant businesses, and the potential for additional revenue based on the short-term rental ordinance that county passed in this fiscal year. As the total general fund revenue impact of this initiative is around $500,000, $553,000, and some change there. The next initiative is about review and renew building permit fees. Again, we have a department presentation to talk about this initiative in detail. But it does restructure, recommended restructuring to the building plan review fees and the change in demolition permit fees. The revenue impact on the fiscal year 24 is around $88,000 there. The last one for budget initiative, it doesn't have any fiscal impact, but what it says is basically the administration cost allocation to the enterprise fund, where administration will undertake a detailed study to determine the cost overhead model to allocate certain shared general government functions cost to enterprise funds. So basically, costs related to administration, finance, budget, HR, risk management, attorney's office, those departments, and how these departments supports the enterprise funds, and how the enterprise funds can or how some of the cost of this department can be paid by the enterprise fund. So this is administration will take a detailed study in order to determine that cost overhead allocation model. Again, this doesn't have any fiscal impact, but as a strategic initiative, we'll do that. And next year, if it is passed, next year we'll propose, based on that study, the cost allocation plan.
Weaver, you recognize.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Desponde, so when you say general fund revenue impact, 553,758, that's the total revenue, or that's the revenue increase?
That would be the impact of that particular strategy on the revenue, so that the general fund revenue will be increased by 553,000 if we
That's
implement.
all an increase, that 553?
Yes.
Wow, okay. You know what would be helpful for staff, for at least for me, for this council person? It would be helpful to know, like, what percentage increase that is? What was it the previous year? Like, I have no idea.
No, and that's where we have the department detailed presentation coming in couple slides later.
Like, is
So,
it a 5% increase? Is it a 10% increase?
There
about to
is
find
a
out,
very
Councilman
detailed
Weaver.
presentation.
What's that,
I
Mr. Chairman?
think with the presentation, you'll find out.
Oh, it's at the end.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I'm just so eager to get there, Mr. Chairman. Sorry. Thank you, Mrs. Sponda. So all that's an increase. Is that the same for the 88, 183?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sponde, let's get to that presentation as fast as we can before
Okay.
Councilman Weaver hops out of his
Okay.
seat here.
So, moving forward, the general fund overview, what this table does is basically the most important column here is the second to the last column, which is FY '24 recommended budget. As you can see that the total general fund budget is $214,132,057. Basically, the operating expenditure is 193 million and some change there. There is a capital expenditure around $1.1 million. The transfers out are like $9.4 million. There are new FTE, again, the full-time equivalent positions recommended. That's around $463,000. Now, that's where you see the cost of living adjustment, which is $4.4 million, and the implementation of the compensation study, that's $5.5 million. So altogether, our expenditure on the general fund brings to the $214,132,057.
Recognize Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Sponda, I do see an 8% figure there. So that is an 8% increase in revenue or expenses, I'm sorry.
Yeah, expenditure.
Overall, it's an 8% increase in expenses.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I understand that. Very good. Thank you.
So this is on the revenue side now. Basically, what we saw in the previous slide was on the expenditure slide side. This is on the revenue. So the general fund revenue would be the pure operating general fund revenue will be $202,132,831. Then there would be general fund transfers in from hospitality tax and the accommodation tax. That's 3.5 million and 25,000. Then use of ARPA funds, which is basically using that ARPA funds for the COLA and the compensation study, which is $3 million. And with that, it's projecting that we'll be using fund balance, county's unassigned fund balance around $504 million, $74,226. That again, going back to brings back revenue to $214,132,057. Yes, sir.
I mean, what percent of our general fund revenue is generated by just property taxes? When you
So
back out ARPA funds and grants, whatever else, I'd like to just know what is the amount of property tax we're spending.
So if we move to the next slide, Mr. Livingston, that's where you can see the very first line, which is 134, 167, 899. That's around. So that's the property tax. And if I'm going to do the percentage wise quickly, 68% of our total revenue. Thank you.
Again, yeah.
Okay. So the next slide, basically the same to Mr. Livingston's question, it breaks down the general fund revenue categories into 8 main categories. There are around 135 subcategories behind this, but this is just top 8 categories. So basically, again, this it summarizes the same information what you had before: ARPA funds, use of ARPA funds, use of transfers, and use of fund balance. Any questions on?
Livingston?
The
Mr.
the
Weaver.
reason why I asked that question, because on that first line on page 10, you were talking about, see, it said property and other taxes. And that's why I wanted to know, what was there other taxes in that 134 million? That was my main question.
And we can definitely break additional details on that 134 million. There are like the way the calculations are done. There are actual the property tax collected, and there is a lost revenue collected, which is basically the loss of sales tax, which is transferred as to us by the state. So that those calculations are also included in that. But we can definitely break that and provide that information to the council. Yes,
Factor for our general fund budget, just kind of wanted to know exactly what it was.
definitely we'll do that.
Mr. Weaver?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Sponde, so I'm looking for a figure, total revenue increase. So if I look at this page 11, and it says total tax revenue 129 from all sources to 137. So I'm figuring that roughly, give or take, we're gaining about $8 million in revenue. Am I saying that right? From all sources, year over year? Or am I misreading that?
No, you're right. So that's if you're looking at the 189 compared to or
I'm looking at 130. Is that 139? I think no, 129 to 137 at the bottom. Total tax revenue.
129 to 137. So
Well, I guess that doesn't include non-tax revenue.
that's right. Yeah. So there is some non-tax revenue as well.
So that's 8 and 8. So it's actually 16 million. If someone says to me, one of my constituents, well, how much extra money is the county throwing out this year? I should say what, 8 million or 16 million? I guess 16 million. These are the kind of people I hang around with, just FYI.
You say throwing out,
Yeah, they're-
you
I'm
say
You said,
Yeah.
you said throwing out. I didn't know what you mean by
So-
throwing out. don't know
I
what
would
that
say
means.
the total revenue was increased from 197 to 214. So
About
that's
17 million.
that's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's all I
but
wanna
that's a revenue increase. I wouldn't use the other term.
And that's non-ARPA funds, right? Or
yeah, this is just the general fund
Non-op,
revenue.
okay.
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
what sounds better, Councilman Weaver, is what we expect to expend this year. Not throw out.
I'm good, Mr.
I
Chairman.
got
Thank you.
you. Continue on, Mr. Deshpande.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if no other questions, so now the next one is basically just we'll talk a little bit in the details about the general fund. So what this table does is basically the 10 highest expenditure by department for personnel operating in capital. Any questions on this one? If not, moving forward.
Deshpande,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry, just go
Yes,
back
sir.
to that for a second. I'm correct, it appears that at least half of our 10 highest expenditures are public safety related, right?
Yes, you can say that, sir.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Thank you.
Sure. So going forward, so what these two table basically summarizes is the 10 highest increase in expenditure percent-wise and the dollar-wise compared to the fiscal year 23. Just wanted to present the both figure on the percent-wise and the dollar-wise. So, even though, like, let's say, for example, grant department is like 98% increase, but that's really, their budget is so small. And now and the last year was the first year that the grant department was established. And basically, we're going to undertake an audit study for this fiscal year, which would cost around $110,000. So therefore, it shows 98%. On the other side, the dollar figure is the total increase in the expenditure compared to the 23 fiscal year 23.
Mr. Deshpande.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Livingston has a question.
Looking at those agencies on that list, like the coroner, the solicitor, the sheriff, and so forth, would it be fair to say that their budget amounts there does not include health insurance costs for their employees?
That's correct, sir.
So if you really want to get a true cost,
There are some
those
additional.
departments,
Yes.
you want to add in the
That's
health
right,
insurance
yeah.
cost, since that's a big cost.
Yeah, and that applies to most of the department, but definitely, let's say like for the first two department, detention center and sheriff, there are also some other cost associated with those particular departments. Yeah. So, but you, to answer your question, that's right. The health insurance cost is not, yeah, because health insurance is we paid as a county-wide as in a health insurance account. Yes.
Mr. Deshpande, I have two questions. First begins with the detention center. But I see fiscal year '23, we budgeted just shy of 29 million. It looks like fiscal year '24, it's just shy of 33 million. What's the reason, I guess, for that significant uptick? Is it because of repairs as well as additional investments that we're making at the detention center?
Yeah, good question, and it's a combination of many things, you know. So definitely there is salary and personnel expenditure increased due to the salary adjustment throughout the year, as well as medical services expenditure, outpatient care, including mental health. Then there is professional services, which I believe is regarding the contract security guards, and as well as yeah, so it's basically combination of all these different parts that is deriving that number.
Second question is, similar question, but also see the sheriff's department. Last year, I think we budgeted 41.5 million. This year, that number, what's recommended is 44 million. So I think my math would tell me that's a uptick of about 2.5 million, right?
Yeah.
So would that be for, could you explain that number? Is that, salary increases, or what's that for?
Sure. So these are, if you remember that in the middle of fiscal year FY23, we did some salary adjustment related to public safety, and that the biggest share was the sheriff's department. So that constituted that 2.4 million increase from FY23 to FY24.
Additional questions from body?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. What is the new development general fund?
Oh. So
I missed the memo on that.
And I'm not a department expert, but what my general understanding is, it is about all the new developments. Like let's say, like if somebody is building a new neighborhood, and maybe I think that's good. So maybe I will have the ACA Jensen to talk about, because that's his. Yeah.
Thank you.
I like the preface there, Mr. Deshpande. You say, hey, I'm not your department's expert. You recognize Mr. Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. ACA Jensen for the record. Very briefly, we have a division here in the CP&D, in the Community Planning and Development Department, that specifically deals with new development. And so in particular, it typically is the review of subdivisions, stormwater, all of those kinds of things.
Okay.
And they're the folks who actually go out and make sure that things are built according to their plans. And so that's what that refers to.
Important job. Good.
Yeah, we need them.
You, Mr.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? No. So this basically, the next two slides is basically just a summarize expenditure, personnel, and operating and capital. Like, so basically the total expenditure for all of the general fund departments. If no questions, I will move forward to the new position recommendations. So as you can see, the total, what this table summarizes, all the new position requests that we received. There were around total 35 new positions were requested. Administrator is recommending 12 new positions for various different departments.
And if I could just add, Mr. Chair,
Recognize, Mr.
these recommendations are discussions that we did have with the department heads and agency heads here. So they are aware of what was included and what was not. And we discussed, and in some cases we compromised based off their needs and potential future projections of how they could work with the current recommendations that were presented. So I did want to just communicate that this does happen with conversations and not in a vacuum with just administration.
Thank you. So just specifically to the grants office, I know we've been having conversation about expanding that office. So with this position, how many staff members will that make that office?
2.
Thank you.
Additional, Mr. Brown?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Continue on, Mr. Deshpande.
So that's where I think now we have two department presentations. Yes, ma'am.
Stop you.
I'm sorry.
Vice
Yeah.
Chair, you recognize.
For the request related to EMS and EMT, can I just get a little more information on why we recommended, they requested 6, but we recommended 0?
Yes, ma'am, you certainly can. Mr. Deshpande, I'll
Yes,
answer
sir.
that.
Yep.
So the department certainly did request additional staff. And one of the things that we said was we have a number of vacancies that we feel right now that the dollars associated with that department, we want to focus on filling those vacancies. And that if we can get that done, then certainly we would support adding new personnel. We just felt like we don't want to just have blank spaces and funding tied up when we know that we have so many different personnel operating and capital needs. So it's just a matter of trying to make good strategic decisions related to funding availability, more so than whether or not we're supporting EMS or EMD.
And I'm assuming that was communicated to them, so they understand that if they fill the positions and still have additional needs, that then they can bring that request back to you.
That's correct.
Okay.
So again, even though the department heads, such as emergency management, do report to the county administrator, they all have the same availability to the budget process. I treat everyone as a kind of an independent source and give them an opportunity to present. And that will also happen before the body if, for example, the emergency management director decides, hey, Mr. Administrator, I understand what you requested, but I really want to make a pitch to the council. He will have that same opportunity even though he does report to the administrator.
Thank you.
Brought to my attention that Councilwoman McBride is online. So Councilwoman, you're recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I know we discussed having the EDI, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion position. Is it because we already have that position and it was not necessary to
Brown?
report it, or
Yeah, Mr.
why is
Brown.
it not being reported?
That's correct. We already have that position. Councilmember McBride accounted for it in the current budget. And as a result of that, we're not requesting that you add any new positions to account for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McBride. Mr. Deshpande, continue on.
So that brings to our departmental presentation. So I will have Mr. Kavanagh from the Business Licensing Department talk about the strategic budget initiative regarding the business license fees.
Kavanaugh, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Deshpande. So we'll go ahead and get started. Sorry I don't have a joke for everybody today, but maybe next time, right?
Pretty good, though.
I'll do my best, Mr. Livingston. So we'll just get started talking about fiscal year 21-22 business license revenue that we collected within the Business Service Center. So we collected $8,284,003.50 of business license taxes. We collected $336,013 of local accommodation tax. We did collect $447,953 of business license penalties. So that portion of revenue is from, getting businesses that may have not renewed every year, just caught up on their business license. We do have a 5% penalty, which begins currently on May 2nd, which was Tuesday, and it goes 5% a month. So it's in the business's best interest to kind of get that caught up as quick as possible. We do collect peddler's license fees. That was $10,847. Peddler's license is a flat fee. They're $52.66. So peddler's license would be needed for, say, like a food truck, door-to-door sales, things like that. And then we also collect the zoning review fee for Mr. Price, and that is $26.33. That would only apply for a new business license application, or if a business were to move or actually change business activity, we would collect that zoning review fee again. And so totaling $10,104,648.81. And I did run the numbers this morning. I won't go as in detail today as I did just for last year's, but business license tax as of this morning, probably about 9 o'clock, $8,013,880.38. And so, like I said, the renewal deadline was Tuesday, so we got some catching up to do with some mail and some online processing. All right, so this will be in front of council later this year in a way of an ordinance amendment. So every odd year, state government tells us what rate class to place each industry type within. And so we determine what industry type you are by what's called a NAICS code, N-A-I-C-S code. It's North American Industry Classification System. It is a division of the federal government. It's in the Census Bureau. Every business type has a NAICS code, and so we're only using a subsector of the NAICS code to place each business type in their actual business classes. And so as you can see, just very generally, 7 industry types went down, 2 went up. Some of them went down more than one class. It looks like everybody that was increased just went up 1. And honestly, when I looked at this the first time at a conference earlier this year, I was like, well, we're going to lose money. 7 industry types going down, only 2 going up. Just at a quick glance, I thought, yep, we're going to need to look at something to maybe update our classes to prevent that. But if you actually dig a little bit deeper, in Richland County, we don't have a lot of mining companies. I think we have 2 licensed mining companies in the county. We don't have a lot of agriculture businesses. The manufacturing going up from a 2 to a 3, that makes a huge overall impact in overall collected revenue. And even restaurants went up. I can't believe it. I've been doing this for 8 years, and a restaurant has always been a 1. Apparently the IRS determined that they became more profitable, so they raised them up to a 2. And so that actually had a larger impact overall as well. So at the very minimum, we will have to update our business license ordinance to adjust the rates to become compliant with the state requirement. Any questions on that?
Anybody? Well, Mr. Cavan.
Thank you. And this is just kind of another table, just kind of spelling out what industry type falls in each rate class. There are no businesses in rate class 6. Whatever the standard deviation formula the state fiscal affairs office uses determines that no business should fall in that class. So that's why that's not applicable in this chart. So this is what we currently are using as our rate schedule. So a rate class 1, $16.85, and that is applied to the first $2,000 of a business's gross revenue. And then every additional $1,000 above the base rate range will apply at 84 cents to each $1,000. We have a depreciating rate schedule that goes up to 10 million, but that's kind of getting into the weeds a little too much, but this is the bulk of the rates that, the bulk of the businesses fall into these 7 classes, which these rates are applied to. So we do have a rate, we do have a rate in rate class 6, we just don't have any businesses in that actual rate class. One day we might get a 6, I don't know. And so what I did is I compared our schedule, rate schedule, to a few other comparable jurisdictions. And as you can see, just at a quick glance, we're the cheapest. City of Columbia, their base rate, if you're a rate class 1, the cheapest you can get out of their business license office for a resident business would be $60, and ours is $16, right? So their incremental rate is kind of on par with what we have currently at 84 cents, but as you can see, we are the cheapest overall as far as I can tell. And I did throw City of North Charleston in there.
Mr. Kavanaugh, may I just stop you for a second?
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Do you have, I guess, an idea of what's behind what I would call a wide disparity between our rates versus some of these sister cities?
Exactly right. So most municipalities, cities and towns, they rely on business license revenue to make up the majority of their operational budget. And so some of these smaller, for example, City of North Charleston, if you're a rate class 7, they're tacking on $3.25 per thousand. I actually have never seen one that high, and I actually got a little sticker shock myself when I looked at that. And so I think the reliance on that revenue would drive how high or low your rates may land. And that's just kind of my, that's just my theory. I'm pretty sure that's, when we go to our annual conference, that everybody that does what I do in the state, they rely on this revenue. Some cities and towns, 80% of their revenue, 80% of their operational budget for their city or town comes from what they collect from business license. And we did adjust our rates in 2021, if y'all recall. That adjustment was a revenue neutral adjustment. So with the 2021 placement of each business type or industry type into their rate class, we weren't able to adjust our actual rates to gain or lose revenue overall. It just had to be a net zero difference. So every odd year, we can adjust our rates however we may see fit. And so that's what I'm kind of going to get into next, if there's no further questions on this slide.
Thank you.
Right, so here's just our current model. We put everybody in their new rate class. Overall fiscal impact is a gain of $9,600. This is a second model that would increase our base rate from $16.85 to $20, and then it increases $2 per class, capping out at $32 for a rate class 7. And then we would be increasing the incremental rate from 84 cents to $1. I like round numbers. I don't know if you like round numbers or not. It makes it easier for me. And just with this minor adjustment, the overall fiscal impact is $877,000, which is pretty substantial, I would say. And what really did it is the base rate, since it only applies to the first $2,000 of a business's gross, it really doesn't make an overall impact in the grand scheme of things. It's the incremental rate that's applied to, billions of dollars of revenue to every $1,000 of a giant pot of billions of dollars, right? So that's what really makes the overall impact. And then I have another model number 3. It's copying the City of Columbia's, which has those higher base rates and then a lower incremental rate. And it does have a pretty substantial overall impact of $767,000. I'll just be honest with you, what I really don't like about this model is the base rate being so high. You really don't want that to be a barrier for a business to open its doors, right? It's like if you wanted to start, let's just say a consulting company that actually falls in a rate class 7, and you don't have any clients lined up, we're gonna charge you $90 to just try to start your consulting business. I just think that just seems high to me. And I hear it every day at our counter. People that just left the city and came to our office, they're like, man, y'all are cheap. And I know we are, because I know what they charge over there. So this is a model that, you know, does have a pretty positive overall impact in revenue increasing, but it just seems like those base rates just could be an unnecessary barrier. And if you're not located in the city, they double these. So it'd be $180 if you lived in the county and went to the city to get a business license for consulting. Because say you might have some clients in the city that you would need to service, so you would need to get theirs as well. And so here are some comparisons at a $500,000 revenue. I chose an industry type from each rate class. So, and just compared them. So there's the column where it's just no change. That's what we would currently charge at $500,000 in revenue. And the Model 2 column is a little bit more. And then what the city would charge is actually less. But since their incremental rate is at 90 cents and then the Model 2 incremental rate is $1, it takes a while. So at $250,000, we'd be cheaper, but at $500,000, we'd be more because the 90 cents and $1, it takes a while for those to catch up to each other, and then it'll eventually pass, if that makes sense. And then we did compare business license taxes with commercial property tax, evaluated at $250,000. I mean, if you ask me, I don't really think there is a comparison because of the large difference between the two. The business license is the little gray part at the top. And then the bottom would be property tax evaluation on that. Some more information I have that's not actually in the presentation, just to kind of give you an idea of what our industries are doing overall as a revenue. So 74% of all of our licensed businesses generate anywhere between $0 and $250,000. And this was from last year's data, right? So we had 9,691 business license accounts. So 7,148 of those businesses generated anywhere between $0 and $250,000. 6% generated anywhere between $250,000 and $500,000, which equates to 627 businesses. 4% generated anywhere between $500,000 and $750,000, which was 356 businesses. What really shocked me was that 10% of our businesses generate anywhere between $1 million and $5 million, and that's 974 businesses. And then we even went further. We did a comparison, $5 million to $50 million. That's 3%, and that's 311 businesses. And then we went all the way to the top. We did $50 million to $500 million, 31 businesses, 0.01%. So a small percentage, but they sure are generating a lot of revenue. And that actually completes my presentation.
Mr. Livingston?
What does it cost for us to operate our business and license division?
The projected budget for next year, I believe, is $434,000. This year, our budget was $340,000. And we have a staff of 6.
Questions?
Thank you. So at the beginning, you mentioned about kind of the changes in the codes. Can you talk a little bit about how you go about informing the businesses in a timely fashion? And are they expecting this?
Right, yeah, so we would work with the communication department on, outreach. I have roughly 10,000 businesses' emails. I would send out a mass email, we'd do a press release. We would make sure everybody that sees a change in rate class would know that. And also make sure they know that this was the state government. We're just kind of following what we have to do to be compliant with the state code.
Additional question? You, Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you.
So we have another departmental presentation regarding the building permit rates.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, council members, sir, and our ACA crew over here, and you, Dr. Thompson, I don't want to forget you. Appreciate the opportunity to tell you, I'm Mike Zapp for the record, Zapp Rzulka, if you want to know the rest of it, but Mike Zapp for the record. I'm your building official for Richland County. I appreciate the opportunity to do that. I'm gonna tell you why I get to talk to you today. I want you to take a second, just think back as you get home and you sit down, you watch that DIY special, and you look over at your curtain rod and you say, yep, I need to change that. Watch a little more of that DIY special, and you say, yep, I think I'm gonna put a sliding glass door in that wall. By the end of that DIY special, you got that 300 square foot addition that you're putting on your house. So my advice to you is, Chip and Joanna Gaines aren't your friends. Secondly, yes, you do need permits. And the last thing, you cannot do it in 30 minutes, whether you take breaks or not. Just food for thought. But moving forward, see if I can get basically, we do everything construction-wise, just so you know what the service is. As you know, there's two areas, Lower Richland right now, and Blythewood area is just booming. With that big boom, it creates more costs. And that's what I'm basically here to talk to you about, just that cost recovery and a couple areas, missed opportunity areas that we have, that we see that we could actually benefit from recouping some of that money. Here's just a basic background. It just tells you that, we do have a permit fee. There's a lot of formulas that go into it, and that'd be another day that I would sit down with you and let you know how they do that, multipliers and all that stuff. But basically, when we provide a service, the contractors pay for it. We're paid out of the general fund. Our budget comes out of the general fund. We try to recoup that money through our fees as we move forward and provide these services. Proposed change, just to take it to the quick. We see over here the existing permit fees, $10.50 for reviewing a permit. That means you come in, you give us your plans, whether they're 1 pages, 250 pages for a residential structure, we're only going to charge you $10.53. You'll see a little bit later where the lowest. Commercial, we only charge 19% of the permit cost, not the total valuation, but the permit cost itself. We charge 19%. One area that we want to rectify for the builders is this right here. You see our demolitions. We do about 105 demolitions a year. Currently we have it broken out into different segments, different costs for different levels. After talking with administrations, we determined that that's kind of unfair to the builders because it doesn't cost us any more to permit a single-story building versus a 3-story building. It just doesn't. And so we want to bring that back in line for the builders and just say, okay, you're paying for the cost of just that single permit and that one visit to see if that demolition is done. So that's kind of where we're at. And the proposed change over there, you'll see we're figuring that 20% of the permit fee will put us more in line to cover the cost of what actually goes into reviewing a plan review. Commercial fee, 40%, and then the demolition, that would be, we just determined a flat rate would cover our cost regardless of what size building they're demolishing. And please stop me because I'll get to rambling if you have any questions on the way here. This right here, we get to spy a little bit on our neighbors. This is what our neighbors are doing when we talk about plan review fees. Some of our neighbors don't charge anything. Some charge more than we do. Our missed opportunity, you see by the red check, if we do just $10.53 for residential. That's our biggest missed opportunity. And then, of course, you see the 19% for the commercial cost. Because I'm a product of South Carolina education and I'm proud of it, we believe in charts. So this is kind of where you're at, right here. We can, to make a difference. When we're talking about a flat rate, a 1053 going across, that's what we look like compared to our other jurisdictional partners or neighbors. You can see we can barely be read on the chart. And it's not so much, just keep in mind, it's not so much that we're trying to say we have to keep up with the Joneses. That's not what we're trying to say. We're telling you that that cost recovery is needed because $10.53, we pay our plan reviewer, we have 2 of them, but we pay them X amount of dollars. A residential plan review will anywhere between 3 to 5 hours it'll take them. And that's not including if you have to do what we call a site visit, go out there and walk it with the architect or the homeowner, try to figure out why they want to do what they're going to do and try to get that on that paper. So that's where the disparity is when we talk about our difference versus our jurisdictional neighbors. Any questions on this slide?
Recognize Ms. Barron.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
And then
you.
Ms. Teresia.
Mr. Zapp, so when you say missed opportunities, because I want to be clear, this is something that we don't do, but it sounds like it's a possible recommendation?
Yes, currently we charge $10.53. And when I say missed opportunity or a cost recovery is that fee that we're charging right now isn't covering the labor hours that we have into that process. So that's what I'm saying. So we're going to ask for the opportunity to raise that so that we can cover those costs.
Thank you. I just wanted you to clarify, because you kept saying missed opportunity. It sounded like that we weren't doing that. Thank you.
Aaron, Mr. Racia?
Yes, so this is something that I asked administration, but just looking at that amount, I was curious if we knew how long it's been $10.53.
Well, I shared that when we sat down and talked with administration. I've been here almost 12 years. I think maybe only Mr. Livingston might be able to tell us when that last.
What is he trying to say?
He's been here a long time. That's all I'll say.
I said the jokes need to be good jokes. Now, wait a minute.
That one was pretty.
But saying that, we haven't done it in the years that I've been here with the previous building official, and that's why I got with our ACAs and we sat down and said, okay, where can we make this work?
Mr. Weaver?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my question is, on all these fees, the plan reviews fees, the demolition fee, if I'm a homeowner and I'm walking into your department, how fast do I get that permit?
In our industry, it depends. That's the answer.
You were going
Yeah.
to say that.
However, I'll tell you, what we do, we brief everybody. If you were to come down to the counter, and you have all your paperwork, we say, all right, you'll get an answer back from us within the 7 to 14 days. The system automatically defaults to 14 days. It allows us that time to look at it. We challenge our crew to say, listen, let's try to do that 3 to 5 days if we can. And it's purely volume based, because with 2 plan reviewers, it's peaks and valleys. So when it's at the peak and there's 500 reviews to do, we just can't get it out. We really struggle sometimes to make that 14 days. But by and large, you can walk out within that 3 to 5 days. Now, there's different type of permits, and not to extend this out
I
longer.
understand that.
But a regular, what we call an MEP, a mechanical, electrical, or plumbing, you can walk in and walk out that day with that.
Perhaps we should look at, not this fiscal year maybe, but the next fiscal year, perhaps you should look at a 2-tier system and charge people an expedited fee. We do that in my office, and a lot of people pay it. We'll say, we'll get back to you in a week, or we can get back to you in 24 hours. And a lot of people pay the 24 hours.
That is correct. I believe it's Rock Hill has a system, something like that. The downside to that is sometimes you can't get the expedited out in the timeline that you say because of just the number of expedites that you have coming in. Everybody will say, because of bigger builders, I'm not going to name their names, but that, if our fee is $100 flat rate, the 300 they turn in is going to all be expedited. And so now we're back that we can't get that out in that guaranteed 3 days, let's say.
One more, this is an observation more than anything else, but the biggest complaint I have as an experienced developer is you can't get an answer fast enough. When I did the Azalea townhomes on Beltline, and the county was working with the city, supposedly, those things sat for months. And I was paying the bank $4,000 a month. I'd have paid anything just to get the darn project moved ahead. I don't know what you can do on that. Maybe that's because there was 2 jurisdictions there, or?
Well, that shouldn't be a problem because usually one takes the lead. What I will tell you in a situation, just assuming what you're telling me, those type of projects are delayed because you turn the stuff in and then the architect that's dealing the project isn't providing the information that they have to get the plans done. So that's usually the hang up when you're talking those type of construction projects. We have re-challenged our crew to say, hey, listen, let's really try to get everything out in that 3 to 7 day window, depending on what it is. And we've been pretty good, with the exceptions of the architects that, we
It's
had
the architect's fault. I will remember that going forward.
Well, they always tell us, we're gonna draw it, so
Okay.
that you can tell them that they can't do it, because they don't want to tell you that they can't do it.
All right, the last thing I'll say, Mr. Chairman, I think these fee increases are reasonable, but I think we should tell the public that because of that, we're gonna do a faster turnaround. That's the biggest thing people want. They want a faster turnaround. They want an answer as quickly as possible. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weed. Go on, Mr. Zapp.
Thank you, sir. We'll take that challenge and try to work on that. Moving to the next slide, this is what it would look like if we went to the 20%, how we would look to our jurisdictions. It would put us right there in the middle or even with them. And the builders, you know, they're going to complain a little bit for this, but right now, like Zach said it best, they come in and they laugh, they say, we'll build in Richland County, it doesn't cost us anything for plan review fees. Our permitting fee, now, don't confuse, we have the permit fee, we feel that's in line where it needs to be. We're right in the middle of our jurisdictional neighbors when it comes to that. But this is just, we're talking about the plan review fee right now. Any questions on what we would look like?
And again, Mr. Zapp, you said permitting fees versus what other fee?
This is it's all permitted.
Okay.
Permitting, a permit. But we have a permit fee, in other words, for the structure itself and for us to go out and visit. All right, there's a formula we use and we get that fee. Once we get that fee, then we would take 20% of that fee. Just say like, if this would be $302 permit fee, we would take 20% of that, and whatever that yields would be their plan review fee. So it's a separate fee.
But the permit fee, you saying is on par with our neighbors, or you saying the plan
Yes.
review fee is?
No, the permit fee. The
Permit
plan
fee.
review, as you can see, isn't. If we go back to the slide before, that's where we stand among our neighbors. We're the green,
On the
which you
low.
can barely see.
Lowest, okay, got it.
Any other questions? That's what 20% would look like. And here's just a quick graph for you to show you. I took 3 permits for the last fiscal year. To the left, you see the photovoltaic. That's our solar permits. We did approximately 304. At 1053, it yielded that 2,000. If we had charged the 20%, it would have yielded 12,000. So that's, you know, right about $10,000 more. It doesn't seem like a huge amount, but it will help in the covering the cost of the service that we provide. Then we took just new single-family constructions, the homes that are built, about 1,100 were built. You can see at the 1053, it's only $12,000. This is where you see the huge impact. At the 20% of the permit fee, you're now talking $194,000 north of that. So we just want to say, and then the townhomes, which are the up-and-coming biggest things we're seeing right now. Everybody's doing a townhome. They're good sellers. We did about 35 last year at a $368. If we did the 20%, we'd climb that 2,000. So that's where you see the difference. Moving forward, this is the commercial plan review fees. Currently, we charge 19% of what it is. So if you take a structure, 1,000, if you look at the first left column right there, that's our county. Then you go over to that structure, there's 100,000 square foot structure, and that's based on the average construction rate in the southeast, which is 461 for commercial project. We look at that and you see, okay, a permit fee was so much, but now the review fee is $19,000, which is, we're minus the average of what our peers have. So that's just a breakout that you can look at your leisure of different size buildings. Because remember, our permit fee fluctuates depending on the square footage or the valuation total cost of the project. This is where we look like if we're charging 19%, based on those 3 categories I gave you, 100,000, 250,000, and so on. That shows you where we are graph-wise. Again, we're at the bottom or the lowest portions. If we go to the 40%, that places us right in the middle. Again, when you talk about permit, a commercial permit, there's so much more that goes into it because you're talking 250 to 500 sheet plans to look at, several site visits, conferences with the architects, the owners, and the builders. So you see that extra added, so almost twice. Remember, a permit isn't just touched once by a plan reviewer. It's gonna be 6, 7, 8, 10 times going back through it with all the changes. So that's why you see the increase, and other jurisdictions have already gone to that higher level because they've recognized that. And this would bring us in line with that. Any questions on this?
Questions from the body?
This is just some common fees, so you can see other jurisdictions have all kinds of fees. We try to stay away from those non-necessary fees, we call them, just because they're just not needed. It's kind of part of the process. One we use for an example is some jurisdictions charge a registration fees for the contractors. They come in, they want to register with us. We don't charge that because they're getting a permit. We have to put them in the system anyways. But there are if you look at that, there are some other opportunities that we could potentially use, but that would be further down the road as we move forward. This is just a graph of how we look, and this is why we did the demolitions when we asked that we want to go to a flat rate. Because if you look at the demolitions, we're the highest across the board. And again, we don't need more money for a fee just because it's a two-story versus a single-story or an accessory structure. Moving quickly, if we just did the demolition proposed flat rate, this is where it would put us. And we feel it would show good faith to our builders that, we're truly charging the fee for the cost of our service in there. And lastly, this is just a summary. Once again, as Ms. Barron said, we say missed opportunities. It's not that we're not doing them. We are charging. We just are trying to change it to a cost recovery type fee, raise it so we can pay for the services we provide. And that leads us to the end. Barring any questions, I truly appreciate your time.
Questions?
Helpful, though.
Thank you
I
much.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Zapp. So that brings us to the debt service recommendations. Basically, the next two slides talk about our various different debt service funds that we have. The total budget for all various different debt service funds is $149,396,963. However, I would like to point two things here. The first one is the general fund upcoming, which you see the TBD amount there. That's where we will be issuing a new general fund bond in later this year, and that principal and interest will be added back to that particular space. So it just right now is a space holder, and hopefully we'll have by the second and third reading we'll have some concrete numbers for that particular general fund obligation. The similar thing is, if you can see on the very bottom of that chart, is for the Richland School District 2 upcoming bond. And what we were informed that Richland 2 is also planning to issue another bond, new bond, so that right now it just as a placeholder for the TBD, but once we have the final number, we'll add that hopefully by the second and third reading.
Deshpande, do we
Yes,
know
sir.
what that second bond is for? Or has the school district informed us what that would be for?
I do not have that knowledge, sir.
Okay.
But we can definitely, we can ask and we can get the information.
Sure, thank you. Recognize Ms. Mackey.
Thank you. And when you say that they are planning to issue, is there a date range that we know this will occur?
No, I do not know. I was just informed from the treasurer's office and actually from the finance director that there is upcoming issuance. It's coming from them. That's why I just, instead of going through the the budget amendment, so that's why I put it as a TBD. So in that case, if even though like we don't have that number, and if down the line if they issue after our budget is approved, we might use this one without doing any budget amendment. So that was the intention.
Thank you.
You on?
Sure. But we'll definitely have the geo bond numbers ready by the second and third reading. Yeah. With that, we're going to the millage agencies, fun stuff. So what basically the next two chart tables shows that so far like we received all of the millage agencies budget requests, but for the Richland School District 1, you may not have that information in front of you if you have any printed document, but are you able to see the screen? Okay, perfect, okay. So in that case, what it says that, the third column from the last is their budget request for FY24. The yellow color basically says that they are requesting the mill cap, so which will require the increase in taxes, and the green numbers are basically they are asking no mill, which will not require the increase in taxes. The second, the table below is basically the pure difference between what was their FY23 no mill increase and what FY24 no mill budget. So basically what the table shows is that all of the agencies, they received an increase when it compared to the FY23 no mill. So, however, you need to, I'm sure you will remember this, like last year we used some of the ARPA fundings to fund some of the agencies. So in that way, the only two agencies here, which is basically the Columbia area mental health, if the council chooses to fund them at the no mill increase, then they will basically receive less than what they received in FY23 as a result of ARPA funding. The similar thing is for the tech school operating Midlands Tech, because they received $375,000 in ARPA funding. So the total allocation was 7.3. But if council chooses to fund them at the no mill increase, which is 7.1, then they will receive less than what they received in FY23.
So Don Deshpande, if you're not at liberty to answer this question right now, it's okay. But any reason why Richland School District 1 has not submitted their budget request yet?
Sure. So yeah, they communicated to me a couple times that their first reading budget is scheduled on May 9th, and that's when I think the board is meeting, and so they do not have that number yet. So they're what I was communicated that we will have their budget request at around May 12th.
Well, I know I can't direct you as to what to do, right, Mr. Brown? But in your conversations with them, or shall you have another conversation with them, please emphasize that their request needs to be in before the public hearing.
Yes, sure.
All right, thank you. Mr. Weaver?
Mr. Deshpande, when you talk about the ARPA funds and these agencies receiving ARPA funds, I'm sure it was communicated to them at that time that this was one-time money, that the ARPA funds were running out at some point. Not to go over old news, but I'm sure it was communicated to them that ARPA was a 1 or 2 or 3 year deal.
Maybe Mr. Brown, would you like to answer that question?
So in that conversation, so yes, everyone was made aware that the council decision related to American Rescue Plan Act funds were at that time one-time funds. In this particular instance, the conversation really stemmed from the fact that the county saw that there was funding that they would receive that was less than their previous funding that they got from the millage. And so the county decided to, through the council, provide an amount equivalent to what they previously had received. And they used ARPA dollars to do that. But in doing so, the council did not communicate that this would be an ongoing process that they would expect from year to year.
Mr. Weaver, last year when we took that vote, it was understood that those ARPA dollars were just a stopgap measure for the upcoming fiscal year.
Very good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Deshpande,
Any other questions?
any other questions from the body? All right.
Okay, perfect. So that brings to the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brown?
Again, Mr. Chair, we know this is a very exciting time because it's an opportunity for us to really talk about how we want to support the community through our services, and then through the budget process, we kind of determine that. So we appreciate the opportunity to present this information to you. And with that being said, Mr. Chair, we conclude our presentation to this body.
Recognize Mr. Livingston.
I just want to make sure I get a copy of that last slide with those milling agencies.
Yes, I will.
numbers in it.
Sure.
Recognize Ms. Mackey. Got the answer, Mr. Livingston?
Oh, right now?
No, at some point, yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I was through, I just said I'd like to have a copy at some point.
He means right now.
Oh,
Mr. Deshpande.
And I will email and I will
Just-
print
just
like
email
in
it to
few.
him. Yeah,
Yes,
just
definitely.
email it to all
Yeah,
of us,
sure.
yes. All right, anything else? Any other business? Ms. Mackey?
Thank you. Administrator Brown, if you could, just for overall knowledge, can you kind of walk through the next steps? I know we've had first reading of the budget ordinance, but can you just walk through the rest of the budget process for us?
So in general, if you don't mind, I would ask either Mr. Deshpande or Lori to just kind of walk us through the schedule so that you can understand what our next steps are from a scheduling perspective, and then we'll kind of follow up with any additional questions you may have.
Thank you.
Thomas?
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. So next Thursday evening will be our public hearing. That will be at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. That's on the 11th.
Thomas, I'm sorry, let me stop you. Next, you said Thursday?
Yes, sir,
What day is that?
the 11th.
The 11th. Mr. Deshpande, when did the school district say they're going to submit their budget?
They mentioned like by 12th, so.
By the 12th?
Yeah, so.
Which is a Friday, the day after the public hearing.
Yep, I had communicated that at least we need to have it prior to, but I will definitely again communicate to them.
I'm not
that-
jumping on your case,
Yeah.
by the way. I just wanted to make sure my ears heard what I thought they heard, so.
So, but, yeah, I mean, that date was mentioned in the email that May 12th, but, the first reading is on the May 9th, that's what my understanding is, and hopefully we'll get it after that. So, and what my understanding is, we have a representative from School District 1 here, so if can I ask the representative to talk about that?
Body want to hear? Okay, come on down. And state your name for the record, sir.
Ed Carlin, Richland 1.
Good to see you, Mr.
In
Carlin.
the email that I sent, I said that I would try and have it out the next morning, May 10th, at the latest the next day. So that's our plan. But I can't do anything until I get the board approval.
Well, Mr. Carlin, again, I'm not jumping on your case, and I don't know what the school district's request will entail. But we had a situation occur last year, and a request came in after the public hearing, and that request was for a tax hike or millage increase.
Right.
And for many of us on this council, we interpreted that request as an effort to circumvent the public hearing while asking for a tax hike. I'm not saying that's what it was, but that was the way that we interpreted it. And I'm not talking about you, okay? I'm just letting you know that for this body, we don't know what the request is going to entail, but it is important that we have the request in before the public hearing, especially if the request will be an ask for a millage hike.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And we plan on doing that. We've done it in the past.
All right. Well, thank you. Baron?
I apologize. I just want to kind of, with our requests, I think it's important that we are able to get this document and be able to review it prior to us coming in council and to the chambers. I think that's important as well, because having it is one thing, but to review it is another.
And also for the public to be able to ask
That was-
questions as well.
Correct.
And for
that's
us
what-
to be able to hear from them, whatever concerns they may have. And we're not picking on one specific millage agency, but consistency here is important, and transparency is, paramount for this body. So I certainly, concur with you, Ms. Barron, strongly.
Mr. Chair, I can also guarantee that as soon as we have it, we will update the presentation to be on the website so that citizens will be able to review that information.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Ms. Thomas.
Okay, thank you. So, as I was saying, next Thursday evening at 6 p.m. will be our public hearing. That will be here in council chambers. The next morning, May the 12th, motions will open for council members. You will receive an email from the budget office prior to that with instructions and a form that you would be able to use to make motions. We would request that all motions from council be back to the budget office by 9 a.m. on Friday, the 19th. That will give us time to compile those and return them for your review prior to second reading, which will be Thursday evening, May 25th. After second reading, we will have third reading with the regular scheduled council meeting on June the 6th. If that pleases the body.
Questions for Ms. Thomas regarding the calendar or schedule for the budget? You're recognized, Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just follow what my colleague, Mr. Livingston, said. I'd like a copy of that graph, too, that had the yellow and green slides. I'm kind of a simple guy, I like the colors. That'd be great. So I
We'll
can
make sure that
see
all council members get that, sir.
what's going up, what's going down, what needs a tax increase. That'd be great.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
All right, any other questions for Ms. Thomas? All right, thank you, Ms. Thomas. Anything else from the body? All right, this time I entertain
One question now. Are we gonna have the second reading on, we're taking action on the budget hearing night? Okay.
the public hearing. All right. Entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved to properly second. Any discussion? Well, that's non-debatable. Madam Clerk, take the vote.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right. We are adjourned.